This is MTG Burgeoning, and in this video we are going to update and upgrade our Morophon the Boundless Shapeshifters with Changeling EDH deck. Thank you for once again joining us for the Up and Up series. Today we are updating and upgrading our Morophon the Boundless Changeling Tribal EDH deck. We have our deck on the left, our Changeling pool on the right, and of course our Changeling pool, that is home to over 100 different tribes, all serving under Morophon the Boundless. If you are unfamiliar with this deck or this ongoing series, or if you just want to know a little bit more about what's going on with this Morophon build, you can search in the description below for a link to this build's deck list. You can also see the deck tech in addition to this build's video primer series. We last left off with a step 1 in our desire to make this all in for a Changeling tribal build. We are going all in with tribal, and that's what we did the last time this deck appeared on the Up and Up series. During that episode, we changed in some of the lands that were currently in this build with some lands that are oh so tribally flavorful. If you missed that, of course, you can go check that out. And today is a continuation of the land base turning over. In this video, we are going to add some lands that are tribally flavorful to what we're doing with our deck, at the expense, potentially, of the overall power level. We're going all in with the flavor, and we're going to leave some of the steak, some of the potatoes, on the side. You'll let me know in the comment section below when the video ends whether or not we're taking this deck in the right direction. So we've got some lands going in that, remember, we're going all in with the tribal theme of this build, and we're trying to make it as flavorful as possible. The first land going into the 99 of this deck is Contested Cliffs. It taps for a colorless mana, but we can pay Gruel colors and tap it to have target beast we control fight target creature an opponent controls. And of course, when two creatures fight, they each deal damage equal to their power to the other. Remember, all of our shapeshifters with Changeling, well, they're also beasts, and they're also beasts as well. So if we have our beefy commander on our side of the battlefield as a 6/6, it is a beast, and we can activate Contested Cliffs targeting our general, and then we should be able to wipe the floor up with any of our opponent's creatures, as long as we don't lose Morophon in the process. So here we're just looking for our Changelings to help with some on-target creature removal. Land number 2 going in, we're going to save the replacements to the very end because they're all pretty much the same. And once we replace one of the lands, well, the trend is going to be replacing almost all of them as well. So with card number 1 already revealed, here is land number 2, and that is Unholy Grotto. Here again, we tap for a colorless mana, but we can pay a black mana, tap Unholy Grotto to put target zombie card from our graveyard on top of our library. Again, our shapeshifters with Changeling are all creature types at all times, so we can target one of them from our graveyard and put it right on top of our library, which is a nice way to try to dance around the potential accrual of commander attacks from our Morophon. Morophon starts off as a hefty 7, and once we get it onto our side of the battlefield, if it goes back to the command zone, it's gonna be 9. Well, if Morophon is destroyed, we can let it go to the graveyard and instead just pay 1 black mana and tap Unholy Grotto to put Morophon back on to put Morophon on top of our library instead. Of course, this isn't just for Morophon. This could be for any of our shapeshifters with Changeling. So Unholy Grotto, as long as our shapeshifters are quote-unquote zombies, gives us some recursion in this deck. So far, Contested Cliffs will help with spot removal, Unholy Grotto with creature recursion. Alright, keep that in mind as we're going all in with the flavor of tribal. We're also trying to make sure that we diversify as much as possible. Removal, recursion. What's up next with land number 3? Well, how about a little bit of card advantage? We can tap Seaside Haven here to add 1 colorless mana, or we can pay Azorius Colors, tap it, and sacrifice a bird to draw a card. So Seaside Haven can act as one of those, well, we know we're going to chump block with one of our creatures, as long as it's one of our shapeshifters with Changeling, we might as well produce a card out of it by sacrificing it before combat damage is dealt. Or if we already know one of our creatures is going to get removed, well, let's pay a white and a blue, tap it, tap the Seaside Haven, that is, sacrifice that quote-unquote bird, and draw a card instead. Seaside Haven should help out with some card advantage, and it's just another one of those lands that are pushing the flavor, the tribal flavor, in addition to help providing some additional resources. We've got spot removal, graveyard recursion, and card advantage covered. Let's see what land number 4 has in store for us, and that is Riptide Laboratory. Yeah, we can't say laboratory here when we're talking about changelings. We have to go with Laboratory. We're going to tap this to add 1 colorless mana, or we're going to pay 1 and a blue mana, tap it, and return target wizard we control to its owner's hand. So with this ability, and again, remembering that all of our shapeshifters with changelings, all of our shapeshifters with changeling are also wizards too. So with this Riptide Laboratory on our side of the battlefield, we can really cause a lot of headaches for our opponents. If we have any enter or leave the battlefield abilities of any of our changelings, well, we can take abuse of that by utilizing Riptide Laboratory. We can also choose to chump block one of our opponent's creatures, and then before combat damage is dealt, we can send that creature back to our hand by utilizing Riptide Laboratory's activated ability. So this one, we're just going to say that this is more of a chicanery land than anything else, but it is going to help out the battlefield and potentially our resources. All right, next up, land number 5. This one is going to help us maybe stay a little afloat in the game. We are, priding and prioritizing flavor over power. And, well, in so doing, we can expect to maybe take our lumps during the game. Well, this land will help us to stay afloat as best as it can, and that land is Seraph Sanctuary. Whenever Seraph Sanctuary comes into play, we gain a life, and whenever an angel enters the battlefield under our control, we gain a life as well. We can also tap this to add 1 generic mana to our mana pool. So with Seraph Sanctuary, we're not really going to be able to do any of the things that we could with the previous 4 lands, but it does give us the static ability to gain a life whenever one of our shapeshifters with Changeling comes into play. Note, we do not have to cast them in order to gain the life from Seraph Sanctuary. They just have to enter the battlefield. With Riptide Laboratory allowing us to get wizards back into our hand, well, we can gain the peripheral benefit of some incidental life gain with Seraph Sanctuary on our side of the battlefield. All right, so far we've added some spot removal, we've added some graveyard recursion, some card advantage, some chicanery with the laboratory, and some incidental life gain. Now, let's try to fix our mana as best we can, in addition to protecting our oh-so-valuable changeling spells, our shapeshifter with changeling spells, which also includes our general. The last land that we're going to add here, that is Cavern of Souls. When Cavern of Souls comes into play, we choose a creature type, which most often will be Shapeshifter. And then we can tap for 1 colorless mana that can be spent for anything, or we can add 1 mana of any color, and then spend that mana only to cast a creature spell of the chosen type, and that spell cannot be countered. Here we're thinking of Morophon. If we're going to invest the 7 mana, we don't want to see an opponent reach into their hand for one of their counter magic spells. Of course, depending on which 12 creatures we pull from the Changeling pool, and depending on what's in our hand at the time, keeping in mind that all of our shapeshifters with Changeling are also all creature types, maybe we're not going to select Shapeshifter. Maybe we're going to select a creature type that's as powerful as one of the Changeling pool additions that we put from the Changeling pool into the deck before we play the game. That's all going to change, and that just adds to the uniqueness of this build, because with the presence of the Changeling pool, no 2 games of this build should ever be the same. All right, so those are 6 lands that are going in. So for the first 5, those 5 lands going in, which again are helping to influence the tribal flavor of this build, those 5 are going in as our all in for tribal, all things tribal continues. They're going to replace 5 fetch lands. So the 5 allied colored fetch lands are going to come out of this build in order to have the 5 tribal lands make their way in. Now remember, if you missed the first episode of this as we're trying to go all things tribal, the last episode I should say, not the first episode, the first step towards doing this was in the last episode. You'll note that we took out many shock lands in order to accommodate some of those tribal lands. With so few options now from a shock land standpoint, we don't really need to run 10 fetch lands in this build. We will leave some, but we don't need to run 10, so we're going to pull out these 5 in order to accommodate the 5 tribal lands. And then lastly, the last swap that we're going to have, this is for Cavern of Souls, although it doesn't completely fix all of the mana that we use for the spells that we cast. It only does so with the creature spells of the chosen type. It does provide some colored mana outside of it just being a basic, or something like Seraph Sanctuary, or any of the other tribal lands we included in this deck. So with Cavern going in, it's going to replace a land that helps to fix the mana, and that is Reflecting Pool. Now this tap to add 1 mana of any mana a type of a land that we could produce. So if we had, say, Command Tower on our side of the battlefield, Reflecting Pool acted as Command Tower number 2. And yes, with Reflecting Pool alongside Cavern of Souls, we could also get that same benefit. However, again, we're pushing the tribal flavor hard, and Cavern of Souls is going to help out with that tribal theme and does still try to help fix the mana, something that Reflecting Pool did with Flying Colors. Like I said on the onset of this video, we're taking a step back from power and we're going all in with flavor. You let me know what you think about these changes in the comments section below. This is MTG Burgeoning, a yo channel for all things magic.